This podcast is brought to you by DirecTV Stream. Does this sound familiar? You got one device that lets you catch the game live, another lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings you your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part? There's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package.
What's up? Welcome in. Hoge and Jahns with you, with half of us in LA for the Super Bowl, the other half in his cozy living room in the Edison Park area of Chicago.
I just want you to know that it is now approaching 36 degrees here in Chicago. The snow is melting. The sun is shining. Big guys are wearing shorts down the street. It's a good day in Chicago.
I needed that because I did not have time to shovel before we left. My fiance also was too lazy to shovel when I was at the Senior Bowl, so there's just a lot of snow in our back walkway. And my plan was I hope it just melts by the time we both get home. So that's good to hear because that's the only strategy that's going to work for us.
It is melting.
That is the voice of Robert Mays, who is with me here in LA. We are on Radio Row, and we're going to do this all together today with a Super Bowl edition of the podcast. We have a rule that we've talked about on this podcast before, Robert, where my rule at least is after March 1st, less than 2 inches of snow, you just don't have to shovel it. You just let the sun take care of it.
It's a good rule.
Yeah.
It's a good rule. It was not the right way to handle the amount of snow that we got last week, but it was one of those things. I got back from the Senior Bowl, and Saturday, I was like, I just need to relax a little bit. And then Sunday, I had so many things I had to do before I left, and she left for Miami on Monday to go hang out with her parents this week because she refused to sit in Chicago in the cold alone, and so the snow just didn't get shoveled. That's kind of how we got to this point.
I'll approve at this point. I think if you live in Chicago for long enough, you just say screw it, and I'm fine.
No, you get some neighbors who roll their eyes. What you need is that happy-go-lucky retired neighbor with the snow, blower who just has nothing better to do than take out the whole block for
just
you.
do the whole block.
Well, that's what our neighbor does, and we
Yeah.
don't. The space we didn't shovel is not a shared space. It's just my back walkway, so it's my problem. No one can judge me. They don't have to worry about it.
Neighbors looking out the back window. Maze isn't shoveling again. Unbelievable.
You know what? That's my problem. He should mind his own business.
My neighbor went. I think we talked about this, Jahns, last year. My neighbor just stopped shoveling the entire year. 12 inches snow. Nope, not doing it. And then she moved. Now the guy, I don't know if he installed a heated driveway or something, but he's the greatest snow shoveler in the history of the world. And so it's a huge upgrade for us.
That's the nice part about living in the city and not having a driveway, is I don't have to worry about that. All I got is the little tiny patch of sidewalk in front of my Logan Square house, which is plenty for me to have to worry about.
Jahns' driveway is basically a city block.
Yeah, long driveway. It's in Chicago, and it can be quite the pain to take care of. But that's why you have sons and chores.
That's right.
It's a good argument for having children. Snow team.
Hey, I don't know what the age is where they stop thinking snow is cool or they realize shoveling is not fun at all, but my 7-year-old still loves it. So we're not going to tell him that it sucks.
You guys are making fatherhood sound luxurious. I cannot wait for that stretch of my life.
When he's begging to go out there and shovel with you, you're like, yes. Shoveling is the greatest. Let's
These
keep
are
this
the
going.
secrets of fatherhood in the upper Midwest.
I'm gonna take notes here when I'm doing this 10 years from now or ever.
Or you can just move to California, where my watch says it's 75 degrees right now.
You don't have to say that.
Yes, I do. Absolutely, because you're not here, and we're going to rub it in. But let's talk some football, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. So things starting to heat up a little bit here. Tuesday of Super Bowl week. Yesterday was kind of a ghost town, but today getting a little bit better. And I think with you, Robert, we should dive into some of what the Bears have done in the past month, because we haven't talked to you since the sky was falling. And for good reason, everybody was mad about a lot of things, including yourself, with the Bears. So what are your opinions about what they've done, Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus?
I mean, I remember the last conversation we had, Jahns, we were talking about whether they should move on from Ryan Pace and whether it would be just a good decision organizationally. And one of the arguments was, and I think the piece that you guys wrote, Adam, for The Athletic was such an indication of this. When you're creating these arranged marriages, over time, and you have that lack of alignment between your front office and your head coaching and your coaching staff, it's just a recipe for mistakes. I mean, you're always going to try to be, you're always one step behind because you're always trying to figure each other out, and there's just no collective vision for how you want to do this. And that's why I think starting over on both sides of this made sense to me, and that's what they ended up doing. I mean, you hear about Ryan Poles, everything I've heard about him from the people that have worked with him in previous stops is encouraging. And it's always going to be when these guys get these jobs, right? But it's not just that bright guy, smart guy, whatever. I appreciated how many people said that he really brought a lot of humility to the process. When you have guys that get elevated to this stage of working in an NFL front office, there are a lot of egos involved. You've been in this business for a long time. I think somebody that comes to it and says, I know what I don't know. I want to surround myself with the right people. I want to ask the right questions. Going and getting Ian Cunningham from the Eagles, I think that the way the Eagles think about some of these problems is really smart. I think the way they've just overall just taken team building as a practice and said, like, this is how we want to go about this. We want every bit of information. I just like the team that they're assembling there, and I like the process that they've been going through there. On the front office side, I think it's nothing but encouraging. The coaching staff side of it, it's kind of funny. You look at the 9 head coaching jobs that have been filled, and especially the 8 before all the jobs that have been filled before yesterday when Lovie Smith and Dennis Allen got hired. It's all offensive coaches, all of it. And you look at the teams that are currently playing in the Super Bowl, 2 offensive coaches from the same tree. You look at the teams that are playing in the conference championship games, 4 offensive coaches. I do think that there's a slightly higher degree of difficulty as we enter this world where offense is king, where you essentially need a top 10 offense to win a Super Bowl. It's harder to do with a defensive-minded head coach consistently. It's harder to build that infrastructure on that side of the ball. It's not impossible. If you're looking for a success story with the Bears, I think it would reside in Buffalo. That's where I would look if I were trying to say, what is the best-case scenario here? You have a CEO-type head coach who is a culture setter, overall just sets the vision for what the organization wants to be in the same way that Sean McDermott did in Buffalo. And you have a support system on the offensive side of the ball that can be an incubator for your young quarterback and the offense that needs a lot of retooling. I don't know if this is necessarily the group to make that happen, but if you're building out what would be the best case, the perfect outcome over the next 2 to 3 years, that's the model that I would be trying to follow.
That's what I like most about Matt Eberflus saying, like, almost immediately, I'm not calling defensive plays. My defensive coordinator is going to handle that. It's just not only a separation from Matt Nagy, who wanted to call plays, went back to calling plays, gave up calling plays. You know where I'm going with this. Had a lot of trouble with his play calling. They don't want to give it up for a lot of reasons. He wants to be, Matt Eberflus wants to be that CEO, like you're talking about, in Sean McDermott. He wants to have an input on offense. What type of input that is, it remains to be seen. But you're right. If Justin Fields can have the development that Josh Allen had, it almost doesn't matter who becomes his offensive coordinator in year 3 or year 4 because of that development and who that quarterback becomes. And you look at other success stories like Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, where you just had Ben Roethlisberger playing well. So this could be a dream. Who knows if the Bears are right on Justin Fields, but I do like that Matt Eberflus seems to, or wants to come in with that CEO mentality right from the start.
And you look at the offensive staff. I mean, the Luke Getsy side of this is exciting. That system and what it's done for quarterbacks around the league, the success is undeniable. I mean, look at how teams have chased it. Now, when you add Luke Getsy to the equation, right? Mike McDaniel going to Miami.
Yeah.
And you have Kevin O'Connell going to Minnesota. They already ran a version of this system. You've got almost half the league running this type of offense. And that Albert Breer report shortly after Matt Eberflus got hired that they wanted this type of system in place. My first thought is, yep, makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it is the type of offense that it elevates good quarterbacks. It makes great quarterbacks MVPs. You've seen that with Matt Ryan. You've seen that with Aaron Rodgers, different versions of this offense. And I think that every hire they made on the offensive side of the ball points to them running this type of system. Andrew Noko, their quarterbacks coach, was in Minnesota with a guy literally named Kubiak for last year as the offensive coordinator. Luke Getsy obviously comes from the Matt LaFleur side of this. Chris Morgan, who's their offensive line coach, was the offensive line coach in Atlanta when Kyle Shanahan was there from 2015 and 2016, those couple seasons. So these are guys who are fluent in that system, and that is what they were going to do on that side of the ball. And what that looks like, it remains to be seen, but I can understand that offensive plan. In terms of the pedigree of those guys, Andrew Janocko has 1 year as a quarterback's coach. That's it. Chris Morgan has done a solid job in places he's been, but he's not a headline-grabbing offensive line coach of the sort that I probably would have wanted in that spot. Even on the defensive side of the ball, Alan Williams has been a defensive coordinator in the past, but the last time he coordinated a defense, the Vikings finished 32nd in points allowed. So these are guys that, it could absolutely work out, and I think that Matt Eberflus is a solid hire and a solid idea, but it's not like this is an all-star filled group of coaches outside of, I think, a guy like Luke Getsy, who was someone who has been sought after this spring.
What do you make of the fact that Ryan Poles comes from Kansas City, but clearly Matt Eberflus, when you get in that interview room, is going to talk about the same things you just talked about, the vision he has for the offense, who he wants to go after. I'm sure Luke Getsy's name came up right then and there. And Ryan Poles says, yes, this is the thing that makes the most sense, not kind of chasing what the Chiefs have done.
One of my favorite parts about Ryan Poles, and I appreciate this when it comes to all coaches and people in front offices, and I think the same applies to Matt Eberflus. When you have a guy from a varied background, I think it just makes you so much more well-rounded, open-minded, and better able to solve problems when they come your way. Ryan Poles worked for Scott Pioli. He worked for John Dorsey and Chris Ballard. He worked for Brett Veach at the end. You've seen different versions of doing this. The way that the Patriots front office structure is unique. It's distinct in the way that they scout players and the way that they talk about players. And so going from that to what we'll call, I guess, the Green Bay model when John Dorsey got there and then taking over when Brett Veach was there, I just like that. I like having different versions of kind of approaching these things. So Ryan Poles doesn't really come from one personnel tree necessarily. The same goes for Matt Eberflus. Matt Eberflus was at Mizzou when I was at Mizzou as the defensive coordinator. And then from there, he goes to Cleveland with Eric Mangini, who was running a kind of Belichickian style New England defense. In Dallas, when he was there, Rob Ryan was there. I mean, it's a blitz-heavy, Rex Ryan-type defense. And then you go and have that Rod Marinelli influence a little bit later. He goes to Indianapolis and runs a system more in that kind of Rod Marinelli style. So he's seen a lot of different ways to do this. And even in the conversations I've had with Matt Eberflus over the years, I've always been impressed by his flexibility when it comes to these sorts of thinking. Talking about approaching different quarterbacks. He and I talked this fall about it. And how would you want to stack boxes against guys? How do you want to play the run game against certain guys? And he's not we need to stop the run or we need to do this. It's, who am I playing against? How do I want to distribute my resources based on the quarterback that I'm going against and what he does well? And I like that. I like that as a defensive, as a principle, and also as a way to think about your own quarterback. You think about Bill Belichick and the success that he's had, and I think that overall the stats as they relate to defensive coaching success are skewed because of Bill Belichick. But Bill Belichick had a conversation with Tom Brady every week. This is how they're playing you. This is why they're playing you this way. I know Brandon Staley has that conversation with Justin Herbert. If you're a defensive-minded head coach, I need you to have that sort of influence on your young quarterback, and I hope that that's the type of relationship those two guys develop.
I think you hear Tampa 2 is coming back, and I think there'll be a slight obsession with it because Chicago knows it so well. But I think we should make clear to everyone it's not what everybody remembers it to be. And even Lovie's defense wasn't what everybody thinks it was. Sure, there'll be two deep safeties and cornerbacks in the flat, but his defense will be varied. His coverages will be varied. Zach Kiefer shared this great anecdote on our podcast last week about how Eberflus, how he would pick the brain of Phillip Rivers during practices. Was it a couple of years ago? Just to get more information, to find the holes in his defense. From a veteran quarterback who's had a lot of success in this league, a Pro Bowler, borderline, maybe Hall of Famer, to find answers to questions he has about his defense, or to know the answers that, that Rivers has for his defense and how he could fix his defense that way. It shows humility. And I think that, like you mentioned earlier, Ryan Poles hiring Ian Cunningham from the Eagles, who's also part of that Ravens tree. You know, that's humility too. Guys who don't think they have it figured out completely, searching for different answers. And I think at least in the short term, we're only, a few weeks into this regime of Eberflus and Poles, but that has stood out to me in that sense.
One of my favorite people to talk about football with since I've started doing this is Sean Lee, who played linebacker for the Cowboys for a huge chunk of the last decade. And Sean is one of the smartest football players you'll ever talk to. He works in the scouting department for Dallas now. And I feel comfortable sharing this, that he told me that Matt Eberflus is just somebody that they had a really collaborative relationship when he was Sean's position coach with the Cowboys, where they'd watch tape and it would be a dialogue about, all right, how do we fix this? Like, how do we solve whatever problem this is? And it wasn't coach to player. It was player to coach to player, back and forth. There was an open line of communication for how they would do that. He solicited information from a guy like Sean who sees the game in a really pronounced and unique way. And I think that's really important. And that's always the sense I've gotten from him, is that, we're going to hear about the hit stuff and the hokey stuff, and these are the taglines, and however you want to brand whatever your version of coaching is. But I think that type of interaction with players and treating it that way, that's really, really important. He's always struck me as that kind of guy. And the most important thing with a head coach, offense, defense, otherwise, what kind of culture do you set? And that is so hard to define, but it just, the way it feels in the building every day, how your guys go to work, why they want to work that way. And everything that I'd heard about the Indianapolis defense is that the players had started taking ownership of that culture. And that's how you pass it on. That's how you build it. And that's encouraging to me. There are always going to be those concerns in the back of my mind about what the offense is going to look like in an offense first league. But I think in every other way, he checks a lot of boxes for the type of guy you're looking for.
I think sometimes we forget, too, that the Colts that was their problem side of the ball for a while before Matt Eberflus got there. So it's the numbers that show that there was some stability with him there. But I think the more important thing is you're bringing up is the buy-in from the players. And like when you hear Darius Leonard talk about, how much that hits philosophy actually has helped him as a player. I mean, this isn't just some random player we're talking about. We're talking about Darius Leonard, okay, who's like, that held me accountable. Then that carries some weight. I understand when people roll their eyes a little bit at acronyms and things like that, but
that stuff matters, though. Like, it really does.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Like, it really does. Like, it really does. Like, how you communicate and the ways that you make your players think, and just like the way that information is conveyed and like all that stuff, that matters.
Well, as long as it makes sense to them, right?
Yes.
Like, that's the key. So like,
if you have
a stupid acronym that makes no sense, which we've played many times on this podcast, like to keep it likable and learnable, or what like, okay, what does that mean? Like, what that sounds like an acronym for yourself as you're trying to coach the players. Like, but if you have an actual defensive philosophy where it's 4 things that the players can drill into their heads and understand why it matters. Not to go back to Matt Nagy's whys, but actually that matters too, because it sounds like Matt Eberflus does have the why already. Like, he knows what it is, or I don't think Matt Nagy ever did.
Again, going back to this, Matt Nagy came from one place.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
He came from one place, and I've come to this a lot. And I've said this a lot recently. I feel like you can pull a string on my back and this is what comes out. If football is problem solving, it really helps to be able to solve a variety of problems because you've seen it solved a variety of ways. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you silo a coach into one specific background, and I have understood West Coast football under Andy Reid, this is how it's been my entire career, or Ryan Pace. I have been in one organization, I worked for the Saints, and that's what I did with one regime this entire time. I do think that it's harder to be flexible and it's hard to solve different types of problems. And I think these guys coming from different places is important. The one thing I'd say about the defense, and I think the word you used is really, really good, stability. It provided stability for the Colts. That's the type of defense it is. It's pretty simple. There's not a lot of blitzing, 4-man rushes. In a league that's become so much more varied up front, with different front structures and teams being able to throw different kind of curveballs at you with the way the front looks and how it marries to the back end. And as the Fangio kind of system takes over, there are some principles and kind of values of this system that are similar in the sense that we're going to make you earn it. Think about what those Lovie teams looked like.
Yep.
I know it can be stable. I know it can be solid. I think it's really hard to make that type of defense great unless you have great players. And that is the biggest question. How good can they be if the players are just okay? And I think right now, if you look at the Bears' defensive roster, it's just okay. So I don't know what that ends up looking like in practice. That's my big question about that system particularly.
Is your company or business having a tough time hiring the people you need? Maybe you work at a coffee shop, you can't find enough baristas. Maybe you're a contractor, just can't find enough people that are experienced. There are 46% more jobs being posted than before the pandemic, and there are 44% fewer candidates applying to each one. So, you need to find the right candidates and hire them fast. Workable can help. Workable accelerates every step of your hiring process, from find to hire. Workable helps you cast the widest possible net by posting your jobs to all the top job boards, more than 200 total, with just one click. It helps you evaluate and hire quickly with modern tools like video interviews and e-signatures. And Workable will help you automate repetitive tasks like scheduling interviews so you can spend your time on what's important, making hires. So whether you're hiring for that coffee shop or an engineering team, Workable is exactly what you need to hire the right people fast. So start hiring today with a risk-free 15-day trial. If you hire during that trial, many do, it won't cost a thing. So go to workable.com and start hiring. Workable is hiring made easy.
Peloton is here to push you further with the Peloton Bike and Peloton Bike Plus. There are new classes, new music, and new ways to keep your workouts fun and motivating every single day and every single week. Peloton has workouts for every goal, day, and mood. I'm a big fan of all their classic rock rides. Jen Sherman and Emma Lovell are two of my favorite instructors. I just did a great 30-minute David Bowie ride with Jess King this week. I recommend that. You can always find 10, 20, 30, and 45-minute rides with the songs from the 80s, 90s, and even the today's hits. I've done the Beatles rides, Queens rides. I've loved them all. Peloton just offers so much. It's easy to stay motivated when there's something new every single day, including core and arm and shoulder workouts. There's yoga workouts if you're into that. And they have these stretch routines that I recommend doing after every single bike ride. But there's more. Peloton is also stepping into the ring with its newest discipline, boxing. No gloves are needed. It's just fast, furious, and a fun workout with Peloton instructors in your corner. So stay in shape and stay motivated while having fun with bike workouts, yoga, meditation, dance, cardio, and so much more. Visit onepeloton.com to learn more. That's ONEPELOTON.com.
Kick off 2022 with a better checking account with no monthly fees. Chime, an award-winning app and debit card, has no overdraft fees, foreign transaction fees, monthly fees, or service fees. With over 60,000 fee-free in-network ATMs at many locations like Walgreens, 7-Eleven, CVS, you can access your money when you need it, where you need it. You can also send money to anyone, even if they aren't on Chime. Fee-free for you, no cash out for them. Make your first good decision of the new year and join over 10 million people using Chime. Sign up takes just 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. Get started today at chime.com/Adams. That's chime.com/Adams. Bank services provided by and debit card issued by the Bancorp Bank and Stride Bank, N.A. members FDIC. Get fee-free transactions at any MoneyPass ATM, at a 7-Eleven location, and at any Allpoint or Visa Plus Alliance ATM. Otherwise, out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees may apply. Sometimes, pay anyone instant transfers can be delayed. The recipient must use a valid debit card or be a Chime member to claim funds. We here at Team Hoge and Jahns recently received our Helix mattresses. We can't get enough. Our wives are happy, we're sleeping better, we feel better, and it's all thanks to Helix Sleep. Helix Sleep has a quiz that takes just 2 minutes and matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. Why would you buy a mattress made for somebody else? With Helix, you're getting a mattress that you know will be perfect for the way that you sleep. Because everybody's unique and Helix knows that. So they've got several different mattress models to choose from. They've got soft, medium, firm mattresses. Mattress is great for cooling you if you sleep hot. Mattress is great for spinal alignment to prevent morning aches and pains. Even that Helix Plus mattress for plus-size sleepers. I took the Helix quiz and I was matched with the Helix Dusk Luxe because it's great for couples. And I just got married and we added that nice Glacio-Tex cooling cover to it. So we sleep nice and cool. It's fantastic. Just go to helixsleep.com/Adam. Take their 2-minute sleep quiz. They'll match you with a customized mattress. It'll give you the best sleep of your life. It's got a 10-year warranty built in, and you get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They'll even pick it up for you if you don't love it. But we know you will. Helix has financing options available and flexible payment plans, so a great night's sleep is never far away. So Helix is offering $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/Adam. That's helixsleep.com/Adam. For the best sleep of your life with Helix.
It's a new year, but it's feeling harder than ever to find and hire the qualified people you need, especially for small businesses. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. They make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 770 million people. Focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience and use screening questions to get your role for the most qualified. Then use the simple tools on LinkedIn Jobs to quickly filter and prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Adam. That's linkedin.com/Adam to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Well, to go back to his hits philosophy, there's an identity that can be developed through that. I think that can spread out through the entire team. And Adam, I feel like you and I have talked about this at length now, is the Bears need that. Like, you can't talk about the lack of identity of Matt Nagy's team, without having this BU thing come to come to mind. It just didn't work at the end. I don't know if that approach led to any identity. I don't think it did. I think this hits philosophy on offense and defense can give your entire team an identity. Like, you listen to Ryan Poles talk about team building and whatnot. That man knows exactly what he wants to build. I mean, he uses words like violence, relentlessness, like tough-minded words that I think would connect with him with a lot of Chicago fans, but also with just football players in your locker room in terms of what type of culture you want to build, what type of identity you want to have, and what type of players you want to add and bring in for that culture and identity. They seem to know what they want from the get-go here.
It's funny because when you think about the best version of this defense and playing hard and having that sort of attitude and identity for what the franchise feels like, we already saw it. We saw it for like 8 years with Lovie Smith.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's a head coach again is just wild. Like, as part of like this entire kind of conversation where we are right now is so crazy to me. But we saw it with Lovie Smith. Those defenses were good, man. They were really good. Think about even the terminology that Matt Eberflus uses, loafs, stuff that goes back to Rod Marinelli when he was the defensive coordinator. Think about some of those individual defenses. 2012, the defense was phenomenal. I mean, they were so good. 2010 was a championship caliber defense. The first year Julius Peppers was there. 2006, they went to the Super Bowl. 2005, I think honestly might have been their best defense. They just could not play offense. And that's what I come back to. Even if they play that style of defense, even if it is the best version of that defense, even if they do bring in enough players to run that system as effectively as possible, if you don't get the offense right, none of it matters. None of it matters.
Yeah. But there was, like, I think you just said it, but there's buy-in offensively from those guys as well, especially up front. Like, that's what intrigues me, like that relentlessness, that aggressive attitude that Eberflus and Poles have talked about. Like, that can apply to offensive linemen, how you want to approach the physical downhill running game or whatever they want to put in with Luke Getsy and David Montgomery. Like, that worked for Lovie Smith. He just didn't get the quarterback right. So if you're right on Justin Fields, you may have some answers figured out. But you're right in saying that we've seen it work. And I think it works for some of those offensive guys. I think there's some questions about that. But that approach, that hits philosophy, can work offensively, especially with the big guys up front.
So this is a good spot, though, to kind of link this to what's going to happen, I guess, in Houston with Lovie Smith, because, Robert, you and I were talking earlier today, and it's like, remember what happened in Tampa, though. It was really bad there defensively. So
It was really bad.
So, what went wrong there? How does this all translate to today's NFL right now? I get the sense that, like, actually right now I'd feel more confident that Matt Eberflus is going to be able to adapt that system to fit today's NFL because of what you were talking about earlier, which was his ability to, like, kind of week by week understand what the problem is that needs to be fixed. Whereas I still feel like Lovie Smith needs to show that he's not that he understands he doesn't have Brian Urlacher in the middle of the field anymore. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe there were hints of that this year as the defensive coordinator down in Houston, but I'm skeptical, to say the least.
Their defense played a lot better than I ever expected them to play this year. And I haven't watched it enough. I'll be completely honest with you. I have not watched it nearly enough. But if you look at the guys who ran that defense that year, Leslie Frazier was the defensive coordinator, and they were one of the worst defenses in the league his last year in Tampa. Leslie Frazier's done a really good job with the Bills. Lovie had the Texans defense in the middle of the pack last season, according to things like DVOA, despite having no talent. So, maybe it's going to turn out better than it did before, but it was so funny mentioning, joking about the Lovie Smith thing. I just tweeted the gif from Jumanji, like, what year is it when he got hired? And people were like, Lovie deserves another chance. He had a great run with the Bears. They genuinely forgot that he was the Bucs head coach for 2 years and that they were one of the worst teams in the league. It's so crazy that he's getting this third run. And I think it speaks more to how strange the setup in Houston is than it says anything about Lovie Smith. I just think that franchise is in such a weird place that you almost can't ascribe normal thinking to them in the way that you would with any other team.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's beyond strange.
Well, yeah, and it's like the problem with the Bears.
I'll give the Jets more credit than that, Robert.
No, even the Jags. Maybe the Jags would be the other
Jags,
one.
okay,
but at least the
okay,
Jags landed on like noted adult and Super Bowl champion Doug Peterson.
Yeah.
He was their first interview.
Well, and I guess you could say the same about Lovie Smith, but it's just how they got there that just doesn't really. Although I guess you could say the same thing about Doug Peterson, because it seemed like they had Byron Leftwich if they just wanted to make what seems like a very obvious move, which was get Trent Baalke out of there.
It made no sense. It still doesn't make any sense. It's the same conversation we had about Pace. The Lovie thing is just insane. He goes from Tampa to be the head coach at Illinois, right? In the moment, it's like, all right, this makes sense for Illinois. This is an exciting idea with a guy who's been to a Super Bowl and is a very well-respected NFL head coach. It does not work there at all.
Nope.
And then he kind of goes backdoor into this weird Texans team where even when they hired him as the defensive coordinator, I was like, well, I guess that's a decision. It's just been a while since Lovie Smith's been like a really successful defensive coach in the NFL. They're a 4-win team, and then he's now a head coach in the league again. Even if they did outperform expectations on that side of the ball, but just the path to this moment where he's sitting there with Nick Caserio today being introduced as the head coach of an NFL team in 2022, it feels like some weird alternate timeline where like the beard is literally indicative of him being on an alternate timeline. It's the scene from Community where they wear the goatees. Like, it's just such a weird situation.
Yeah. It makes you feel better about the Bears' simultaneous searches for a GM and coach. And the funniest thing about Lovie's return to me is the forgotten time of him at Illinois. It's just not even discussed anymore.
Was he there for like 5 years?
He was.
Yes.
I was at every single one of the Northwestern Illinois games, and they were all bad.
Remember that big press conference that they had down there, and like Mark Potash showed up, and Lovie gives him a smirk, and David Hawes in the back. That was a thing here.
There was a game.
Now it doesn't exist. That didn't happen.
The year after Northwestern went to the Big Ten championship game, that was a great 2018 season. Then 2019, they had a horrible season because they had no quarterback whatsoever, and they go down to Champaign and they win. They beat, and Illinois was like making some strides that year, and they go down there and they win by just putting out a quarterback that hadn't played all year in Andrew Marty and just running the ball with the QB the entire game. And they won, and I'm like, this is really bad here. Like, this could not be worse in Champaign. That all happened. We can't forget it.
Could you imagine how uninterested Lovie Smith had to be by the idea of recruiting?
Oh, he was.
Like, it's.
I heard half the time he was just in Tampa.
Why would I understand it, I guess it's a job and like you're a head coach of a Big Ten team, but I just can't imagine someone who'd be less interested in the let me go sell this program in some kid's living room in like Sarasota, Florida on like a random Tuesday in January. It sounds miserable for somebody who's been in the NFL his entire coaching life.
No, I think that's why it went wrong. I think it could have maybe worked to an extent, make bowl games.
I understand it as an idea, but then when you go one layer below what the initial headline is, it's like, wait, why does this make sense? And then, but hey, listen, good for Lovie. He's now the head coach of an NFL team again.
Has any other coach?
It worked.
Has any other coach legitimately failed that badly in an NFL? Now he had all the success in the world with the Bears. Well, not all the success, but a lot of success with the Bears. But Tampa did not go well. Then you go huge step down to Illinois, and that's a disaster. And then you end up as a head coach in the NFL again.
Cliff Kingsbury is the only other answer. Somebody who was fired from a college coaching job and then was an NFL head coach within 18 months of getting fired from that job.
Yeah, I guess that's good. Yeah, okay.
That's the only comparison I can think of.
But at least he had Patrick Mahomes, didn't he?
Maybe Dennis Allen with this.
Well, Dennis Allen was...
I mean, he was 8-28 with the Raiders. That's the only thing I'm comparing.
But that's you at a certain point when you kind of rebuild it. Dennis Allen has had a top 8 defense for the last 5 years. I mean, he has a very good resume for getting another opportunity as a head coach in New Orleans or not. Lovie Smith has not spent years rebuilding his reputation as a defensive coach. He did 1 year for a 4-win Texans team. That was the rebuilding. It could work out.
Which I have to say, I'm
but
actually kind of impressed that the Texans won 4 games.
They were better than I thought they were going to be. But if this is what you're after, why wasn't David Culley the guy who you'd want to be the coach and just have Lovie Smith the defensive coordinator?
Right. Yeah. Or why wasn't Lovie the guy until literally you hired him?
I assume it was something, and my understanding is it's something to do with assistant coaches and wanting some change over there. And Pep Hamilton is the offensive coordinator there now, which there are elements of what they're going to do there that I do find exciting. I think Pep Hamilton does deserve a chance to be an offensive coordinator after the work he did with Justin Herbert and with Davis Mills down there. But the adjective that keeps coming to mind, it's weird. It's freaking weird. It's just a weird situation overall that I don't fully understand.
Tell everyone what you got going on this week here on Radio Row.
We got shows every single day. So we're going to have 8 podcasts coming to you guys between Monday and the time the game kicks off on Super Bowl Sunday. We're trying to hit this thing from every single angle on the Athletic Football Show. We got some storyline player-driven podcasts. We've got some guests coming on. We had some big picture X's and O's stuff. We're going to talk about the teams with our team writers, Jordan Rodriguez and Paul Diener Jr. on Thursday's show. So come back and check it out. I mean, if you want to hit this game and think about this game in every way you possibly can between now and the time it kicks off Sunday, we're going to try to do that for you on the Athletic Football Show.
All week long. Good stuff. Make sure, I know a lot of our listeners listen to your show as well, as they should. Check it out. And then Jahns, I believe, just make sure you get Robert's address. You have to go shovel for him. Whatever he didn't get done before he left here. That's what we decided.
What would you say? You broke up there.
Okay, sure.
I really would appreciate it. I really hope it melts by the time I get home. I really
it seems
hope
kind of warm there.
All right.
I think it will. All right, we're out of here.
Out.
You got anything? Any final words, Johnsy?
No, I don't.
Should we plug
Kevin California boys?
Should we plug Kevin Fishman's curling story?
Oh, you should, because he spent 5 months on the thing.
I know.
Listen, when you cover the Bears, you got to do anything to distract yourself.
I mean, I kind of feel like I deserved at least a credit at the bottom of it.
You probably did. Yeah. I talked more to you about that story than either with me.
I'm actually in the story. Not mentioned, but if you look at one of those photos very, very closely, I'm in there. Maybe we'll give it an obvious shirt away to one of our listeners who can actually spot. It's like, where's Waldo, but where's Hoge in one of those photos. That's a good plug. Now people can go look at the story on The Athletic, theathletic.com/Hoge and Jahns, where you have to go to read that story. And then, of course, all the football coverage, too. And you should be listening to The Athletic Football Show. We'll have another episode of Hoge and Jahns later this week as well. You can watch us, and you should be on YouTube. And you can see where Robert and I are sitting with the perfectly centered.
I noticed that Trey Hendrickson was in the back when I was doing a show yesterday. It is actually pretty good. It's among all the backdrops in this room, that's not the worst outcome.
How'd you guys finagle this table? It's
a really good question.
Perfect. Yeah, so you can check that out on YouTube. Subscribe and hit the notification button so you know when we go live. All right, Jahns and I will be back later in the week. Follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns. You're just at Robert Mays, right?
I am.
There you go. Make sure you're following him on Twitter as well. We will talk to you on Thursday.
See ya.
Anyway, who cares?